What's up, guys? Welcome to the second installment of LeLe Linguistics. I'm LeLe Farley. I've studied Mandarin Chinese for well over a decade, and I'm currently a bilingual rapper and comedian based out of Los Angeles, California, but banned in the People's Republic of China. On the last episode, we covered the phenomenon of foreigners thinking that they're fluent in Chinese when they're really not, most commonly apparent through their tones. I then covered a different framework through which to improve your own tonal learning, as well as why tones are such a cool and beautiful aspect of learning Chinese. Now, if you haven't seen that first episode, please be sure to go back and watch that. If you did see it and you liked it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. As I said in the last episode, language learning is a lot like working out. It's a lot like pumping iron. Through consistent work maintained over a long period of time, you will make enormous strides that you previously never even dreamed you could make. But instead of putting up more on, the bench press, you're speaking with more grammatically complex sentences. Okay, instead of going to Tinder and showing off your new veiny biceps, you're wowing Chinese grannies in a Chengdu tea house with Song Dynasty poetry. Listen, guys, whether it's Chinese or any other language, what you're doing is you're constructing for yourself a new lens through which to perceive and interact with the world. Now, how exactly should you go about constructing that lens in an efficient and effective manner? That's what we're covering today. First things first, there is no shortcut to learning Chinese, but there are methods capable of increasing your efficiency tenfold. Check that, 100-fold. Now, one of these methods is called parroting. Parroting is, much like a parrot, the act of repeating what someone says basically as they're saying it. Now, in language learning, parroting means following along with the dialogue and repeating it aloud as you listen. Let me demonstrate.
选修课目，可以自己选择要学习哪一门课程，要修哪一门课程。
In my opinion, parroting is the best way to improve your oral fluency, bar none, especially if you care about your accent. However, when you first start, you might find it very difficult. Your pronunciations are wrong. You can't keep up with the dialogue. Do not get frustrated because there are 2 steps to parroting effectively. First, drive slow, homie. Drive slow. Pick an episode of a Chinese language learning podcast. I've always loved using Chinese pod episodes from the early days before they went to Taiwan. I checked, and these are still downloadable via Pirate Bay. If you know how to use torrents, that works, but if you don't, then go to YouTube because there's tons of channels devoted to teaching Chinese. Pick one you like, find an episode of a topic that interests you. Now watch that episode. Then select it at a slower speed and play it again, this time trying to pair it along with everything, even the teacher explaining things. Even at a slower speed, you're going to find it very difficult to parrot everything 100%. That's okay. This is where the next step comes in, repetition. This, my friends, this is where people really screw up their language study. They fail to realize the importance of repetition. They watch an episode of Friends today, and then they'll watch the next episode tomorrow, or they'll just listen to one podcast episode this week, waiting for next week for the new episode to come out. No. No matter how smart you are, there's only so much you can retain from listening or watching something once. Instead, an effective language learner would watch the same Friends episode every day for a week, or listen to the same podcast episode every day for a week until they know it. Real progress in language comes from repetition. By repeatedly listening to and parroting along the same episode, your muscles will become familiar with the language and develop your tongue, your lips, your throat. What will happen is by day 2, you'll notice a difference. But by day 5, you can talk about the topic with comfort and ease, and by day 7, you own it. The material has become solidified in your brain, serving as just one more block to your growing tower of linguistic fluency. That's what you're doing when you're learning a language. Last week, you may have learned about how to order at Starbucks. This week, you learned about how to get your clothes fitted. By the end of the month, you're going to have 4 new blocks on your language tower. By the end of the year, you're going to be winning arguments with your mother-in-law over how to properly raise your child. These are the fruits of effective parroting, y'all. But let's take a closer look at the labor involved. All right, guys, listen. I get it. Repetition is not the funnest thing in the world. In fact, it can often feel quite boring. And it will be boring, but I've got 2 pieces of advice for you. First, choose things you're interested in. I love movies. I spend loads of time listening to movie reviews. When I find one I like a lot, I will parrot that MFR until I'm dreaming in it. Because I'm passionate about the thing I'm learning, the repetition therefore feels less dull. And it should, because if you're really down to learn a language, especially one as complex as Chinese, you should learn to love the details. That is the second piece of advice. By repeatedly exposing yourself to one topic, you will uncover hidden gems, whether it be a grammatical structure that you like, or the way a point that you agree with was articulated, or just the cadence of a long sentence. Learn to fall in love with the details. A good book gets better at the second reading, a great book at the third. I can tell everybody I am currently rereading a book on Chinese history for the third time. It's called 哇，原来历史可以这样学. It's a 230,000 word walkthrough of Chinese history. I've noticed this time around I can effectively recall the difference between each dynasty, major historical figures, or monumental shifts in Chinese history. I enjoy this process of retaining more and more information with each read-through. For those of you that are just starting, don't get anxious, relax, and take it one step at a time. When I was at the intermediate level, that meant one episode covering one topic listened to on repeat over 1 week. Language learning is about finding what works for you. Now, what works for you? In order to find your pace, you must first set your short-term and long-term goals. In the short term, you may just want to learn about how to talk about cooking. But in the long term, you may want to be able to manage a kitchen of Chinese chefs. Now, assuming that you're a student with other classes or a working professional with a job, parroting is the best way to make the most out of your language learning time, especially with technology. When I studied at the Central Academy of Drama, I was waking up at 6:30 in the morning every day, listening and parroting to the same podcast episode while walking to the canteen, while eating breakfast, while getting ready for class, where I would then speak and hear Chinese with native speakers for 3 hours. That's because my goal was, and still is, to not only just be fluent in Chinese, but to be great at Chinese. However, for those of you that feel discouraged, I was 24 when I went to the Central Academy of Drama. My Chinese wasn't even HSK 5. I don't even think it was HSK 4. No, at that time, Chinese to me was like Frieza. And studying at the Central Academy of Drama, I was like Goku training at 100 times gravity en route to Namek. Okay, now HSK 6 is Majin Buu. I think I'm probably at like Omega Shenron or something. Now, for most of you, your long-term goal will not be as intense as trying to spark a democratic movement within China via your lyrics or jokes. But still, every morning while you're preparing breakfast, taking a deuce, driving to work, there's still loads of time you could use to parrot. Even if it's just 20 minutes a day, as long as you are repeating the same material every day, I'm telling you, you will not only see improvements, but you will see them faster than you think. Eventually, you'll notice a sort of cross-pollination between your proficient topics. I like running. After spending time learning about how to speak about stretching and posture and breath control, I had a much easier time learning about yoga because of the cross-pollination happening in the vocabulary. However, elephant in the room, with China's government cracking down more and more on free speech and China slipping into another cultural revolution, the quality of the country's entertainment industry has gone from mediocre to crap. So in trying to find interesting study material, especially for you advanced learners, what good Chinese movies, TV shows, music, or even rappers would I recommend? Luckily, I've already journeyed through the labyrinth of garbage coming-of-age films and corny karaoke songs for you. I've got plenty of recommendations for each level that I'll cover in the next episode of LeLe Linguistics. So please be sure to subscribe to my channel, like the video if you liked it, and fill the comment section with your questions. I'll see you next time. Peace!